We're focusing on generating cash and we're focusing on growth. Our story, our proposition still remains. We want to secure a significant position in the energy storage market as a capital growth proposition. Bushveld Minerals, AIM-listed, integrated primary vanadium company with a fairly clear strategy that we want to be leading our significant low-cost primary vanadium platform that's integrated downstream into the very exciting energy storage market. Our primary vanadium production, which combined present 550 million ton resource of high-grade vanadium deposits, which is the largest high-grade primary vanadium resource base of anybody in the world. Vanchem is the only other remaining primary vanadium plant that existed in South Africa. So between that plant and Vametco, we have 2 of the 3 primary vanadium plants in South Africa, or 2 of 4 operating primary vanadium plants in the world. At Vametco, we produce what we call MV ore before we convert it into nitrovan. And MV ore is a bit of a mix of vanadium pentoxide, some trioxide, and the ability to produce a pentoxide product and a trioxide product is actually quite valuable. And then it's got 2 conversion facilities for ferrovanadium, which will allow us to convert either pentoxide or trioxide into ferrovanadium. And the fact that it's got 3 kilns means also that you've got a lot of flexibility in the way you run that plant. At Vametco, if we shut down the kiln, that means that we stop roasting, right? While we're doing that. The news here, the good news here with Vanchem is that I can stop 1 kiln for maintenance and I can have 2 kilns that are still running at full throttle. And you know what? The ability to scale up and down your production also in response to where exactly the market is in the short term is quite positive. Between the 2, on the back of a refurbishment program and the expansion capex at Vametco, we will be in a position to produce 8,400 metric tons of vanadium. As I indicated earlier on, that's more than treble of what we produced last year. So between the resource base we have, and by the way, even producing at 8,400, we still are not consuming over the life of mine, we're still not consuming even a quarter of the resource base that we have. With the large resource base, with the processing capacity that we have, we think we are in a very strong position to, supply on a low-cost basis into the steel industry with a broad range of products, as we indicated, to produce vanadium chemicals as well. And we also be very proactive as a company to unlock that market opportunity. When we are successful to do that, we want to make sure that the security of supply of vanadium into that space is not in question. With Vanchem and Vametco and our resource base, we now are well positioned to really drive up our production, low-cost production base, and we really have a solid platform to then do the kind of work that we're looking at in the energy storage market. In the short term, I think we all know that there's been some downward movements in the vanadium prices. We saw in that an opportunity, in our view, to have a conversation with the sellers around how we possibly restructure that transaction. And we're very grateful that they were, I think, pragmatic and realistic in agreeing to that. So the $52.5 million was the revised transaction consideration, which is payable with $30 million, which we paid now, and $23.5 million is in effect a deferred consideration in the form of a convertible bond, which has got a 2-year term. I personally do believe that the sellers of Vanchem would be very well served to convert into Bushveld shares and hold and participate in the growth of the company. And I do believe that as we execute our strategy, indeed, that that proposition will only become that much more attractive. And I think there's a fairly good chance that they may well, consider to take it up. And if they do, let's keep in mind that it's Deferco we're talking about. They are a very credible party that has been quite active in the vanadium market. I wouldn't have a problem at all having them on the register of Bushveld Minerals. I think that would be a positive thing.
What we see as, besides the supply of the vanadium, the other obstacle that most of these companies have, outside of maybe a Sumitomo, which is kind of large enough to support itself, is they need scale, right? And it becomes a chicken or the egg. To get scale, you need to have orders. To have orders, you need to get your costs down. You get costs down with economies of scale, right? And one of the things that we liked in the specific transaction of Avalon Battery and Red Tea is a merger, right? It's two companies looking at completely different markets, having different sets of skill sets, the ability to maybe have some synergies on the cost side, on the R&D side, but you combine their pipelines, and all of a sudden, you've got a lot more scale. You get to that economy faster, and it's not you have to wait 2 years. You get there in 1 year, for example. Instead of 4 years, you get there in 2 years. It needs less capital to get there, so it's a less risky investment. We think that's very good for the industry. That's why we like that transaction.
Fortune favors the brave when it works, but when it doesn't work, that's when people do look back and go, that wasn't such a smart move.
Let's argue that we were proved wrong for a second, and the market didn't take off, notwithstanding all the work that's gone into it and the research that's gone into it being a real opportunity. We still have a large resource base. We still have a large processing infrastructure, which will only get lower in terms of its cost of production and therefore competitive, supplying vanadium, even if all that we ended up doing was supplying that vanadium into the steel sector. Right. So how big is this downside, right? And then we think it's very, very limited. The upside, on the other hand, is enormous.
And I think the other part of it is it requires a whole lot less capital than what we're doing on the upstream. The other is the ability to source external capital for clean energy projects,
yes,
for clean energy products, for sustainability and the circular economy. That money is out there. Some of it is actually discretionary financing, where it's actually cheaper than what you could ever get if you were trying to borrow money to build a mine, and on much favorable terms. So we don't have to rely on our balance sheet as far as we would have to for the mining and processing. Yes, there's some de-risking that we have to do, but that's again, it's only early stages. The ability to scale up, the capital is there. It's just looking for investable opportunities, and that's what we're providing.
When we started talking about it, and we started putting some resources towards it, each time you have to face some level of skepticism, it's a blessing, because it makes you rethink your assumptions, revisit assumptions, and say, we're just drinking our own Kool-Aid. And I think every single time we've done it, we've got even more conviction that it's absolutely the right time for this, and that the opportunity is that real.